When you buy an insurance policy, you might think you're just buying a product, a piece of paper, but you're not. You're buying a promise. And the company on the other side of that promise, well, they're making a massive, high-stakes bet that they can see the future just a little bit more clearly than the rest of us.
So, that really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? How on earth does an insurance company put a price tag in a future they literally cannot predict? It seems impossible. So let's dig in and see how they even attempt to pull it off.
First things first, to really get a grip on this gamble, you have to understand what an insurer's job actually is. And believe me, it's basically a constant balancing act against pure chaos. And here's the core of the whole deal, right? You're paying them money, your premium, to take on your risk, your uncertainty, your worry. Their entire business is built on saying, give us your unknowns, we'll handle it.
Okay, so to actually manage all that risk they're taking on, every single insurer has to get three things absolutely right. First, they've got to figure out the price. That's your premium. Second, they have to assess their reserves, which is the big pot of money they keep for claims. And third, they need to set their capital. Think of that as their emergency fund, their financial cushion for when their predictions go way, way wrong.
But hold on. Before they can even start crunching numbers for prices or reserves, they've got to do something fundamental. They have to define the enemy. They have to stare into the abyss and give a name to the monster they're trying to tame.
And this is such a critical distinction. People throw around the words risk and uncertainty like they're the same thing, but they are not. Risk is something you can kind of get your hands around. You can measure it, calculate the odds. Uncertainty, though, that's a whole different beast. That's the profound, simple fact that you just don't know what's coming. You don't even know all the possible things that could happen, let alone the chances of them happening.
And here's the takeaway, the thing you absolutely have to remember. The more uncertainty there is, the bigger the risk. The foggier that crystal ball is, the greater the chance of a complete financial catastrophe. So, managing uncertainty is managing risk. So how do they even start to tackle this giant foggy concept? Well, they break it down. Insurers usually think about uncertainty in three main flavors. You've got process uncertainty, which is basically shocks from the outside world. Then there's parameter uncertainty. That's when they make mistakes in their own math. And finally, model uncertainty, the truly scary one. What if the tools they're using are just plain wrong? Let's unpack each of these.
All right, let's start with those surprises from the outside world. This is all the stuff that's completely out of the insurer's control. The real-life events that can just blow up even the most careful plans.
At the very heart of it all, claims are just random. An insurer can try to predict, but they can't know for sure how many claims are going to pop up, how big they'll be, or how long it's going to take to pay them all. They can have mountains of data from the past, but the future never, ever just repeats itself.
And then you throw people into the mix. And we humans are, we're messy and unpredictable. Our attitudes about making a claim can change over time. What happens when lawyers start running ads on TV, actively looking for people to join a lawsuit? All of a sudden, the number of claims can explode for reasons that have nothing to do with the actual thing being insured.
And this gets even wilder when you look at massive disruptions. Think about climate change, right? It's making all that historical weather data less and less useful for predicting the next big storm. Or after a huge hurricane hits, the cost of lumber and labor skyrockets, that's called demand surge, and it's almost impossible to predict how high it'll go. And governments? They can pass a new law, or a court can reinterpret an old one, creating massive liabilities that literally did not exist when an insurer sold that policy years ago.
Then there's the whole economy. Man, what a wild card. Inflation messes with the cost of everything, from a car bumper to a big court settlement. And a recession doesn't just hurt an insurer's investments. As the source material points out, it can actually lead to more crime, which means more claims for theft. It's all connected in this incredibly complex web that's just so hard to predict.
Okay, so that's all the chaos coming from the outside world. But what's maybe even more terrifying for an insurer is when the problem is coming from inside the building, from the very data and the models they use to make sense of it all. This gets us to something called parameter uncertainty. And honestly, the best way to think about it is the old saying, garbage in, garbage out. If the numbers and assumptions you're feeding into your super smart computer model are flawed, then the answer that comes out the other end is going to be flawed too. Simple as that.
And there are so many ways the data can be garbage. It might be just plain poor quality or inconsistent. Or what if you're insuring something brand new, like a new piece of tech? You might have no data at all. And there's a huge blind spot when it comes to those super rare catastrophic events, the tails of the distribution.
By definition, you just don't have enough data to know what they really look like.
And this data problem becomes a massive headache for certain kinds of claims. A single huge catastrophe can completely wipe out an insurer's profits for years. But the ones that really keep actuaries up at night are the latent claims. Asbestos is the classic example. These are claims popping up today for products that were sold decades ago, creating liabilities that were totally invisible when those policies were first written.
And that brings us to our third and final type of uncertainty. And this one is maybe the most insidious of all. What happens if your data is perfect, but the tool you built to analyze it, your model, is broken?
And a model can be broken for reasons that are almost laughably simple, like a typo in the computer code. Or it can be wrong in really complex, subtle ways, like making a bad assumption about how two things, say inflation and interest rates, are connected. It's like you could have the best ingredients in the world, but if your oven is broken, you're still going to burn the dinner.
So you take all those shocks from the outside world, and you combine them with the possibility of mistakes in the math on the inside, and you start to see just how much pressure these companies are under. It is no exaggeration to say they are walking a very, very thin tightrope.
And if they slip, if they fall off that tightrope, the result is just one word. And it's the single worst word in the insurance business.
Because here's the thing. Insolvency isn't just about a company going bankrupt. It's about a promise being broken. It's the risk that when you need them the most, when you file that claim, the money simply isn't there because their gamble on the future failed.
And that right there is why all this complicated stuff matters. It's why you should care. An insurer's ability to navigate this absolute storm of uncertainty, to stay balanced on that solvency tightrope, that is what guarantees your claim gets paid when you need it most. It's the entire foundation of the promise they sold you. All of which leaves us with one last really big question to chew on. In a world where everything, climate, technology, society, seems to be getting more uncertain by the day, how do you even begin to prepare for a risk you've never even seen before? How do you price the truly unknown?